This is a one-speaker meeting. Please welcome our speaker tonight, Merri.
I'm Merri. I'm an alcoholic. And hey, I'm glad to be here. It's a great crowd. I love this crowd. You know, coming from New York, you know, sometimes you go to these California meetings, if you know what I mean, and they're a little vanilla to me, you know, so when I got here, you know, everybody said it's kind of an interesting crowd, you know, when you come to this meeting, but I got here, I was like, these are my people, you know, I'm like very happy to be here. I feel like I'm back home, and I know I belong, and I love that. You know, it's a great time of year. I want to congratulate all the people that took chips. I want to welcome you, Miranda, and all the other newcomers. You know, you're in the right place. Great time of year to get committed to your recovery. It's a great time for change. You know, it's leading down to the wind down of the year, into the holidays, celebration of life, celebration of love. You know, forget the Santa thing, forget the other crap, you know. Everybody gets too damn stressed out, you know, over all of that stuff. You know, all it's about is love, you know, love and keeping it real. You know, keeping it real, because that's what that's what I tried to do all my life, and I couldn't quite get there. You know, I couldn't quite get there because I needed to drink and use. I needed to drink and use. When I was born, you know, I felt like, well, first of all, I'll really start from the beginning. What time is it? I want to mind my time. Okay. I was born 2 days after Christmas. I was an early baby. I was supposed to be born in January sometime. My dad was out drinking. My mom was trying to decorate the Christmas tree, and I was twisting all over the place. I basically, when I was born, I came out an arm and a leg, and they had to break my collarbone to deliver me. So that should tell you, like, I didn't really want to be here, you know what I mean? And that was sort of the start of it for me. You know, when they say, you know, I was born an alcoholic addict, I really do get that for me. You know, for me, my personal experience, you know, that's what it was about. I didn't really want to be here. You know, and as soon as I could start, you know, anesthetizing that stuff, I grew up, you know, as I said, my dad was out drinking that night. He wasn't even really around, you know, at the hospital, from what I understand. My aunt named me, you know, so it was just, you know, I hear all these little stories, you know, how we go back through our past, and, you know, and that's the reality of it all, but you know what, the past is the past. You know, and I've done a lot of work. You know, a lot of us, you know, come here with the, you know, the victim mentality. If anybody can relate, I certainly did. You know, if you had the life I had and went through what I went through, you know, you drink and use the way I did too. You know, it was the only way to get by. It was the only way to get through it all. A lot of physical abuse, a lot of emotional abuse, a lot of yelling and screaming. We didn't really talk a lot, you know, a lot of screaming, you know, or shut down. You know, a lot of that silent scorn, you know, that's something that I've battled with throughout my life. You know, I get real quiet when I don't want to, like, confront situations, but really that's what it is. It's that silent scorn, you know. I'll show you, I just won't speak to you, you know, and as if that's hurting anybody but me, you know, and the relationships in my life have suffered, you know, as a result of that, you know, because I need to show up as the person that I think I'm supposed to be, that chameleon. When you grow up in an alcoholic home, if anybody's had that experience, you know, who do you want me to be today? You know, what's going to make everybody peaceful, and how can we not rock the boat, and let's not have any conflict, and all of that's a big job for like a 6, 7, 8-year-old kid, you know. My mom, I have 7 kids in my family. I'm the oldest girl, and you know, basically what that sort of meant was I was kind of there to take care of all the other brothers and sisters. And again, a big job for a little kid, you know, and I don't feel like I really had a childhood in some ways, to the point where, you know, when I got into recovery, it was time that I could have that childhood I never had, you know, and that's okay. It's never too late to have a happy childhood, you know, and all that crap, you know, but it's true. You know, it really is true, and I've come to learn that, and I've come to live that, you know, in recovery. So yeah, I started drinking and using when I was like 12, you know, and my dad, the alcoholic, I was never going to be like him, so I started doing a lot of pot, and I know this is Alcoholics Anonymous, but, you know, I'm going to tell you my story, and I think from looking around the room that it's okay to do that here. So, if I may say. So, you know, my first drink was Tanqueray, that like orange vodka thing, like, I don't know what the heck it is, but anyway, I just remember that's what it was, and I started to, like, you know, really throw up and everything, and then we started smoking pot, and I wasn't throwing up anymore, and I thought, well, I prefer this, you know, I don't really like the, having to throw up and have the room spin and everything, because, again, I kind of wanted to have that illusion of being in control. Everything seemed so chaotic and out of control in the life I was living that I really wanted to have that sense of control, which, again, I've come to learn is just an illusion, so not real. But that was my struggle, and that's where my disease, took me into believing that I actually had that going for me. And, started doing a lot of pot, a lot of pills. One thing my mom taught me was to be economical, so you don't buy like a nickel bag of pot, you buy like, a half a kilo, or, you don't buy a few Quaaludes, you buy 100 at a time, it's a much better deal, it's a bargain. So, I love a bargain even today, and so, and with drinking, you don't buy something small. You get the gallon of wine, or you get the fifth of scotch, or, whatever it happens to be. I never did anything small, I guess that's the thing. And that lets me know that I'm in the right place, because when I got here and I looked back and I kind of ran through, as we all do when we first get here, looking at our whole story, year by year, month by month, what led us up to actually getting into these wonderful 12-step rooms, yeah, boy, I just did it hard and heavy. And I always needed to know I had where the next thing was coming from, I needed to know that for sure. I could not go to bed without knowing that I had a little something for the next day, whatever it was. And that was tricky, growing up in New York, I ended up getting involved. I mean, I went all the way. It's like when you first start smoking pot, they say, don't smoke pot, you could end up becoming a heroin addict, Well, that's exactly where I ended up. It was like, because I was like, oh no, that won't happen to me. I'm just a Janis Joplin hippie kind of girl, that, likes sex, drugs, and rock and roll, but, I'm not going to go there, and all those lines like we hear about in the rooms, that you sort of put in front of you, like, I won't do that, and I won't do that, and I won't do that. I did it all, I kind of gave up on having any kind of a fantasy life, because any fantasy I had, I made it happen, and I'm here to tell you, just use your imagination, it was like, it was a wild time, let me tell you, it was a wild time, and some of it was a lot of fun, I'm not going to deny it, some of it was a lot of fun. I moved out to California, and I always had a little job, I always kept some kind of income going. I didn't like to depend on anybody else, like my family said, if you need a helping hand, it's at the end of your arm, Yeah, that's what they said. In other words, you don't ask for help. And that was the thing that really challenged me a lot when I got here, because, even crawling in the way I crawled in, and believe me, I crawled in, like, I couldn't ask for help, I was like right away, sponsoring people who were still on methadone, I mean, I would just like do everything, probably the right or wrong way, but the reality was, I was here and I was committed to staying clean, and that's all it takes, that desire. That's all you have to have, is that willingness, that desire. That's all they ask around here. And believe me, I've done some crazier things even in recovery than I did outside of it. But all to say, I moved out here to California and ended up in a little temp job in an office, and went to a party, and this woman said, I know how you can really make some good money, and I ended up, becoming a call girl, because I kind of did the rationalization and justification trip, It's like, well, it's just a date, and so what if I, make a few $100s, And because at first it was like that. I mean, I really fell into some shit, I want to tell you. But, at the end it was, 5 or 10 for whatever, if you know what I'm saying. So, that's a progression too, it's a progressive disease, all of it, And so I ended up going to a concert with a band from down in Georgia, and, ended up like, a week later living in Georgia, called my mom, and she said, oh, how's your brother in San Diego? I said, I don't know, I'm living in Macon, Georgia, and it's like, well, when did you go there? Oh, I'm working for this record company, I'm this and that, and I was basically a glorified groupie, happened to be on the payroll, if you know what I'm saying. So, anyway, it got crazy. It was fun. Like I said, there was some of it that was fun. When I did get a little job where I could keep a little self-esteem going, I kind of kept the drugs and alcohol at bay. I was never clean. Don't let me give you any illusion. But, I wasn't always sticking a needle in my arm, or, up all night snorting coke, or, drinking a fifth of scotch a day, which is basically, where I ended up. it's definitely my experience. It's a progressive disease, no doubt about it. So, I want to get clean because and sober because the reality is that, I have been clean and sober for 29 years, and that is a miracle. I mean, it really is. And when I got here, the way I got here was I was dating a guy who was a Chippendales dancer. And and he had 3 kids, aged 14, 12, and 10, and I was on 50 milligrams of methadone, and I was drinking a fifth of scotch a day, and I was to be their mother, and it was like even I could see at that point in the haze that I was in, that this was not a good situation, and that I was not showing that I had no capacity to really function in this way, and I started to, I went into a rehab basically, and I remembered being in that rehab, and they made me say I was an alcoholic, and I wouldn't do it, I would say I was a drug addict. I had a lot of pride in being a drug addict, but I wasn't going to say I was an alcoholic, and where that got me was after I was clean and sober for a month, I went out and drank because I had denial about that. I had denial about the alcohol, and what I learned about that, and what I share with you here is because I know when I got sober in New York, there were people that were, doing poppers on New Year's Eve, but that was okay. They were still sober, and they were smoking pot every now and then, but that was okay. They didn't drink, and that kind of stuff was going on, truthfully. And so I was like, is that okay if I occasionally shoot heroin? I don't think so, So I really got that it really was that total abstinence thing, and it needed to be that way for me. And that's what I learned when I went out and drank, that I wanted more. I wanted whatever it was that was going to get me where I wanted to go, and whether it's alcohol for you or pills or Coke or heroin or I don't know, whatever combination thereof. I heard it once and I love it. It really fits for me, which is it's like, switching seats on the Titanic, whatever it is, if you think you can manage one thing or another, eventually, you're going down, and that's what it felt like for me in my addiction, that wherever I did, whatever I tried, it led me to the same places, which was that pitiful and incomprehensible demoralization, that we talk about. So I went through that 28-day program, and I wanted to leave. I wanted to leave every minute, and this guy that was there, he was a counselor, and he was a recovering pimp, a guy I could really relate to, and and he said, if I can do it, you can do it, and I really love that because I needed that identification, that sense of identification of knowing that somebody really knew what I was going through, because I was terminally hip and fatally cool, you know what I mean? It was like I was so unique, I couldn't even stand myself. So, it was like, and to be, a recovering, an alcoholic among alcoholics was something that took me some time to get to. It really did. I set myself apart. I made myself unique even in recovery. After that 30-day relapse, I really committed to that this was what I needed to do, one day at a time. And I did. I got way into service. Service has definitely, kept me clean and sober. It really has. Because when I didn't want to show up for me, if I knew I had a commitment to be at a meeting or if I was sponsoring someone, whatever it happened to be, I knew that needed to be more important than my pity party. That needed to be just that little bit more important, than that self-centered, Merri that brought me into these rooms. And like I said, I did. I was sponsoring people that was still using, and, I was doing some crazy, crazy stuff. But in fact, my first commitment, I like to tell this story, you had to have 90 days to even take a coffee commitment at this particular AA meeting in Queens. And basically, between me and 2 other people, we each had 30 days. And so they added them together and said, okay, together you have 90 days. The 3 of you will do the commitment. I can't tell you how fucking proud I was. You know what I mean? I felt like they broke the rules for me. You know what I mean? Like that, again, the arrogance and the, and the false pride and all of that stuff. Sometimes it pays off. You know what I mean? Because that kept me coming. It kept me going to that meeting, 11 o'clock on a Saturday night. Because, it didn't matter if it was Tuesday, Thursday, or, Monday at 2 in the morning. I was going to use no matter what. But you get clean and sober, and all of a sudden, oh, it's Saturday night, Well, like what? That was so different, before, Or, it's the holidays. Well, yeah, I get that, and I really do. It can be a tough time of year. But, what's so great is we get to be together. We get to be with our people, with our peeps, as they say, or, some people say that. I actually never say that. I don't know why I just said that. fact, I heard somebody say it the other day, and I thought, how freaking corny, you know what I mean? But, sometimes that's me. I can be corny, I can be the real me here. I don't have to wear the masks. I don't have to be, the person you want me to be. And I did a lot of that in sobriety. In sobriety. Who do you want me to be? What do you want? I didn't, I talk about stick with the winners. If somebody came in and they were like, all totally messed up, that was who I wanted to date. You know what I mean? It was like, I didn't get the stick with the winner thing. I went very upside down. I'm a very inside out person. What makes you laugh makes me cry. You know what I mean? It's like, I can't tell you what's going on with that. But, I'm bodily and mentally and chemically and brain-wise and all that stuff different than my fellows. And I get that. The fellows out there, the fellows in here, no. We get each other. We really get each other. And I had a great sponsor when I first, came around. And, she was really good until I was talking about it earlier, until she shared with me something someone who took a fifth step with her told her. Does you get that part? Yeah. Anyway, so I was, registered. I'm not going to be sharing my fifth step with her. So I basically, paid a therapist to do my first fifth step because, God forbid, people should know and hear about, the real deal with what happened to me and what my life was all about, And today, it's not about, like I was saying earlier, it's not about the, indecent exposure. I don't have to share everything from the podium, but for the most part, I don't have a lot of shame and guilt about that stuff anymore, and for the most part, that's the stuff that if I share it from the podium, it just might help somebody else to realize that, you can go through anything and stay sober. You really can, and you can have a happy, joyous, and free life. My hobby when I first got sober was, nailing myself to the cross on a daily basis for sport, I like to say. I felt like I didn't suffer enough, and I'm a good, recovering Catholic, and so, I needed to suffer some more. I needed to repent and, make up for all the bad, all the bad naughtiness, that occurred out there, And, it's not about that. It's so not about that. But, that's my path, and I got to share it, And at 5 years, I met a wonderful woman who passed away. Eileen, remember Eileen and Risa, and Eileen was my sponsor, and she told me, she said, the steps are not another job, like you already have a little job, Oh, I should tell you about my job, and I can't tell you everything, we're going to run out of time. But anyway, I never had a really, really good job, and I got this job on Wall Street, which, my mother would love to tell her friends, my daughter works on Wall Street, because, she was never very proud of what I was up to. So, and every time that I would think they were going to reprimand me and call me in the office, they'd give me another promotion, So it's like when they tell you, let us love you until you can love yourself, or let us believe in you until you can believe in yourself. I needed a lot of that, and I just share with you, be open for that, because those moments and those opportunities can be the very things that keep you sober and keep you coming back and keep you believing in yourself. And it's like they say, if we want self-esteem, take esteemable acts. Going on the internet, checking out the porn, meeting people at 3 a.m, all things that I've done in recovery. I'm just sharing with you. You know what I mean? That's not how you get the self-esteem, hello. You know what I mean? If you want self-esteem, you take esteemable acts. You take a ballroom dance class, or, I don't know, go see a play, or, do something cultured, or, I don't know. But don't be fucking trashy, I'm sorry, I don't like to curse from the podium, but, the reality is we can change, we really can. And as much as people really don't like to change, I think, it's an incredible journey, and I'm proud to say that I'm not the person that walked in here, and that I'm not the person, that even throughout my years, in sobriety, has been. But so where was I going with all of that? Let's see. I was going to tell you about, Eileen. And so we started working the steps, and she said, you're a child of God who has a right to be here and a right to a good life. And I'll never forget that. It's like ingrained in my heart and in my brain and in every cell of my being. If I just think about Eileen, I think about when she said that. And I didn't feel that way at that point. I had 5 years of sobriety, and I was suicidal because I was of service. I was doing everything for you. I was looking good on the outside, and I was dying inside, And I started working with her as a sponsor, and we went through the steps in a gentle, loving way. a gentle, loving way so that I could hear it and so that I could heal. You know, I was yelled at and screamed at and tortured and told what to do and enough in my life. You know, that's not what I came here for. I came here for some love, compassion, and understanding so that I can fill myself up and come from a clear place, a loving place, and give you the love, compassion, and understanding that you all deserve, you know. And that's what happened in that experience, and my whole life changed. At that time, I started traveling. I started doing a little acting. You know, we had a little doing our fundraisers at the loft that Gigi used to live at, and it was a blast. You know, just coming out of that shell and being that kid that I was never really able to be. You know, and I've had those beautiful experiences in sobriety, and I've had some tough times in sobriety. My dad got sober. He took a 6-month chip at my 3-year anniversary, and that was a beautiful, beautiful experience. I'll never forget it. And I moved out here in '89, and my dad put me on the plane, and I said, "You take care of yourself." And he looked at me and he goes, "I will, kid." And he went like that. And I said, "What was that?" Like there was sort of this little tilt of his head and a something or another, and I didn't know what it meant, but I remembered it sat with me, like, what was that? And a week later to the day, I got the phone call. He dropped dead of a heart attack. And I believe that people do know when they're going to go. I believe that. That's just my own personal thing. And I think he had a clue in some level, in some way, shape, or form. And the reality is that we had made our amends, that I was able to talk to him, and tell him that I wished I was a better daughter. And he told me he wished could have been a better father, that his dad was so hard on him. It was the only way he knew to do it with us. And he wished he could do it over, but, we can love each other now. And I thought that was something I would never hear my whole life, that even though we had gotten close and, he was sober and I was sober, we never had that talk. Again, just don't talk about that stuff in my family. You just don't get real. You tell you love each other. You might even start hugging now. All of a sudden, we hug now, we kiss now. Okay, that's good. Before it was like, what the hell are you doing here? Or, whatever. But anyhow, long and the short of that, a year after that, my sister Peggy was, killed in an accident. And this was the sibling that I was the closest with, that knew everything about me. I had been dating women at the time, and I wasn't out to my family, and, but she knew all that stuff. And that meant so much to me, that somebody in my family knew the real me, And I miss her something terrible. I really do. She was like 9 years younger than me, and I remember taking care of her as a kid, and we'd go into the city and go to the ballet and do stuff together, and when I got sober, I remember when she came in, I went back home, was living with my parents for a bit, and she came in and she said to me, "I'm just so happy to have my sister back." And that's what we get to do around here. We get to show up for our family, after the years that they didn't know where the hell we were, or, if we were going to be okay, or when we were ever going to get out of jail, or, whatever it happened to be. And, and we get to show up and we get to show them that, that we can be, a productive member of society, you know what I mean? That we can show up, suit up and show up. And those are the things that I learned here. Those are the things that this program has taught me. And the thing about working the steps, I have to finish at 10 of. It's a couple of minutes. Whatever. Okay, I don't know. I'm asking for direction. Okay, keep going. All right, 5 minutes. Okay, he's got me on 5 minutes. Here we go. Now, because I really like to honor the thing about start on time and end on time. You know what I mean? Things like, integrity, things about keeping my commitments, things about that. I didn't know about any of that stuff. If I showed up, I showed up. When I showed up, you should be happy I'm fucking here. You know what I mean? You know what I mean? So, and not today. You know what I mean? I know I shouldn't really be cursing from the podium, but I just feel very inspired by you people. I don't know. So anyway, the thing that I just want to talk about the steps a little bit, because it's so important to me to share with you what I've learned and what I've learned about the steps, and yes, I'm powerless about everything, and that's step one. And, in my life can get real unmanageable if I think I have, the power over the people, places, and things in my life that, maybe aren't acting and behaving just the way I think they should, and, all of that stuff. And being restored to sanity, anything can restore me to sanity. It doesn't have to be, if you're not into the higher power thing, picking up a piece of literature, picking up the phone, that can restore me to sanity. And that helped me a lot to kind of break it down into those bite-sized things, especially when I was new. and turning my will and my life over, I used to do that, like, I didn't turn it over, I turned it off. That was one of my favorites, I would think I turned it over, and really all I did was shut down, or I turned it over, like flapjacks on a griddle, whoop, And, the reality is, you have to know what it is that you're turning over. Somebody said to me once, and I thought, oh, how profound, I'm not just giving it lip service, I have to be clear about what it is that's pushing my buttons, that I need some help with, and I need some support, and where I get that is doing a fourth step, it just, boop, slips right into each other, and I love the fourth step that I do with the columns. It, like, gets everything done 2, 4, 6. The first column is your 8th step, the third column is your defects, your 6th step, and then the my part, the fourth column, that's my amends, so I'm able to get it bing, bang, boom. And 6 and 7 are absolutely my favorites. Because when I looked at step 6, when I first started to look at step 6, it was actually my favorite. Why? Because I'm damaged, you know what I mean? It was that side of it, you know what I mean? I'm damaged, everything's wrong with me, I have 20 gazillion defects, I'm so broken, oh, pour me another drink, you know what I mean? So it's like, I had to be careful with that 6th step. That 6th step is not there to beat me up and push me out the door, so when I learned how to do this 6 and 7 thing, it was look at all the defects of character that have come up over your 4th step. The fear and the anger and the remorse and the guilt and the shame and the fear of economic insecurity and, the inability to be honest and, being a big old liar and, not being an authentic self or, whatever it happened to be that I'm terming as my defect. Then I can look in 7 at the corresponding asset, because for me, letting go of my defects, I felt like I'm going to be the hole in the donut. You know what I mean? What'll I be? I won't be hip, slick, and cool and everything that I, had in my imagination, about me. It's going to all go away and I'll just be boring, Not true, because if I look at those corresponding assets in step 7 or the virtuous, opposite of the defect, then I have something I can put in there. Then I have something I can fill it up. Then I can have something I can work towards. Then I can change. Then I can transform. I can be a person that shows up. I can be a person that speaks my mind. I can be a person that lets go of financial insecurity because it's coming from abundance. You know what I'm saying? So I can incorporate that stuff into my life, and then I'm in the solution. And I'm partnering with my higher power. I don't get struck defect-free like, Tinkerbell or what's the good witch, Glenda the good witch, It's not happening. I'm here to tell you, I've got to participate in my own recovery. I get to do that. I get to participate in my own recovery. And that's the gift of this program, being able to show up and do that. And step 8, just making the list and the amends, we could go on and on with that, but I need to talk about step 10. Somebody talked about it earlier. When I'm wrong, promptly admit it. And a woman in New York, it's not mine, but I love it. And when I'm right, shut up. And I love that. Because when I'm right, when I'm wrong, I can tell you I'm wrong. But when I'm right, I really want to tell you how right I am. You know what I'm saying? Until you really get how right I am, And then I have to really make amends all over the place because, now I've tortured you with my rightness, And, who cares? It's about the humility. It's about accepting that I can be human and accepting that I can make mistakes and I can make some poor choices, even in sobriety, and I can walk back in here and I can tell on myself because if I'm held accountable, if I'm accountable to my actions and I tell at least one other alcoholic what I'm up to, I'm likely to, be clear about what I need to do to maintain my sobriety one day at a time. So I'm going to get ready to close up here, but just to say the 11th step has been an incredible journey. I've been through such a journey. Now I'm a Buddhist, no longer a Catholic. That's what works for me, getting into, hey, I've suffered enough. It's, this life is about suffering, so let's come from compassion. Sort of that's just it in a nutshell. But I've been through a lot. Course in Miracles, I've walked on coals, I've done it all. You know what I mean? It's like I am willing to go to any lengths. I was willing to go to any lengths to get loaded, and I'm willing to go to any lengths to maintain my sobriety. I wish you a very happy, happy Thanksgiving today, tomorrow. Every day is a day to be grateful. So it's not just about the day on the calendar, but, stay sober, stay close to people in sobriety, use the phone, use your sponsor. It works if you work it. Thanks for listening.